Futuristic. It was very, again, driven for the 18, 22-year-old rough and tumble adult, but now you got a bunch of kids that joined the martial arts. You also had a bunch of kids that were traumatized from joining the martial arts, okay? And lots of people quit. There are only a few of us that were too stubborn not to. Okay? But again, most everybody did. Okay? And so there was a big boom, right? So 73, you got a boom. There's a huge boom in the 80s, but then it also dropped basically right off a cliff again. Okay? And it plateaus, there's other things or whatever, until like, I don't know the exact date, I'm going to say like early 90s, 92, 93, because it takes traction in a couple of different ways. There's another media event that comes out. It starts elsewhere, but it becomes a movie also. There are movies, there are cartoon versions, but again, it started as a comic. There are toys, Happy Meals. Been talking about the newest comic version. The color of Eli's shirt. Ninja Turtles. Okay? TMNT. Again, used to be a comic, turned into kidified, right? Originally, the graphic comics were pretty sharp. You realize all the colors, the bandanas were basically kidified. Like they all wore red originally, right? The different, orange, blue, purple, red. That was when they kidified it a little bit, okay? But there's another movie, it was a comic, comics were kind of fringe or whatever, but there was a movie, there was a TV show, it kind of caught on in the franchise blossomed, if you will, around the Ninja Turtles or whatever else, okay? Saw Ninja Turtles 7 times in theater, right? But that's another story. Basically, so again, this creates another huge boom in martial arts. Again, what group is interested in it? Kids again, okay? So we have another boom of martial arts for kids. This time, however, the martial arts industry as a whole is a little better prepared, right? I mean, overall, we really now keep in mind, this is like another generation, like these kids were not born when this happened, or were too young, and, or had, the ones that were traumatized back in 84, they're kind of older, that it's a different generation, right? So, parents forgot about this group, or how bad this went this year, they forgot about it, right? And they came back, right? And they decided they were going to try it again, okay? It's kind of like a McRib, right? I joke, the McRib sandwich. Anybody like the McRib sandwich? Anybody tried it? I think it's horrible. You know how they bring it back? I joke that they just wait until everybody forgot how bad it was, so they'll try it again and they'll eat it again, but actually that's not true. I think it's actually tied to pork belly prices. Whenever they get the pork, the food for the right price, they bring it back. I read that somewhere. Anyway, the point is, right, so basically the memory of this is gone. This is a new generation. We are much better prepared for this next boom. We're like, boy, we made a lot of kids cry. That was bad. We should do better, okay? So we are much better prepared to make this a kid's activity, okay? So the demographics overall between these two events, but really even more so this event, okay? Really, this starts it, but this solidifies it to where martial arts is now considered more kid activity, okay? Because the dough aspects are being sold, right? The other aspects, confidence, Self-defense is part of it, yeah, but respect, focus, discipline, all the other things are also the do aspects of the martial arts are also being emphasized, okay, in the classes, right? We're doing our goal setting, we're in classes now, we're doing those things, right? So that's a big part of our programming here, and that's why I wanted to become a martial arts instructor, because those do aspects helped me in my life, and that's what I wanted to help share with other people, and I'm blessed enough to be able to do that, right? And I enjoy being able to help other people do that, right? That's why this school exists. That's why I do what I do. But again, the emphasis has changed to the kids' class. Now, there are many associated debates about this, about the quality of black belts. How young is too young for a kid to get a black belt? And all that type of stuff, because we've shifted from, how good of a fighter are you, to, those do aspects and things like that, okay? And so that has come with quality questions and teaching philosophy questions and a lot of other things that have shifted with that demographic shift, right? And we have plenty of adults in our classes, right? And some of our classes are more adult based, right? But at the same time, we definitely wouldn't have this nice of a place if it was not for the kids population, right? So one for more you guys, right? So that is to be sure. So, there's something about it, and schools vary, but generally speaking, across the country, most martial arts schools are 89% children, okay? Because of those. Now, there are several other Mulan, Power Rangers, Airbender. Some of those are even past my time. Like Last Airbender is past. I don't even really get that one, right? So some of those are past me. So there have been more sustaining events. Instead of just these boom and bust cycles, they really started hitting more one right after another. Okay, and so it has been much more of a sustaining process in the martial arts. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of would have hoped the last Mulan release would have been a little bit bigger boom. Kung Fu Panda was a bit of a bump. That was kind of new. That was a bit of a bump for us. We had a few people that came in and wanted to be, one little dragon was mad because we didn't dress like Kung Fu Panda. We dressed in our angry white pajamas. And, I don't naked anyway. I don't know how Kung Fu Panda is supposed to dress anyway. I don't know what that's right. So anyway, so that was a bit of a boom. But it's been much more of a right. So it's been much more of a. We had another boom and it stayed a little bit higher as far as the kids go since then. But there have been a couple of other shifts in the history of the martial arts, okay? Or other things have developed. More in the late 80s, it really started in the late 80s, 95, 96. It wasn't very popular. It almost went out of business, got bought, it's been reiterated. It is now the defining, really kind of the defining combat sport in the world, and that is what's the most popular combat sport right now, at least for pay-per-view and everything else? UFC, MMA, right? Which, Bruce Lee, they're not the first to figure out, you should be kind of well-versed in martial arts and stuff like that. We talked about before, but it's the newest iteration of that. we talked about before that it was actually the brainchild of the Gracies to help promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling in general, again, as a more viable self-defense alternative, because a lot of these Asian martial arts came over more striking based, and I mean judo was there, but again, you know, the Bruce Lee kicked up people upside the head, and that's what people wanted to do. Bruce Lee grapple, but still, right? So and like we said, it was the Gracies kind of cherry picked their competition to prove their point early on but at the same time they also, I mean, it was an important thing. Okay, so the UFC, the MMA boom happened late 80s into the 2000s, and it has kind of grown in terms of sport popularity and everything else. It couldn't see. But by the mid 2000s, it was getting very, very popular. Okay, and I can tell you, I knew when, like, holy cow, this is. I mean, it was something I kind of watched from the very beginning, right? But I can tell you, it was very, very. I'm like, wow, this is pretty big now. We were at a tournament, and it was one where we stayed overnight. We used to travel and like stay in a hotel, and then everybody kind of hung out together after the tournament that evening, and it was a good time, right? I miss that part about the tournaments nowadays, right? But so like there was like a dance in the tournament room or venue. There was kind of a party, and we were all just kind of hanging out and dancing and whatever, and I was playing around with the kids, like, or whatever, kind of like a Christmas party used to have or whatever. And I'm like, I'm looking around, like, where are all the parents? Like, I got all their kids, but where are all the parents? What's going on? Like, there's certain moms that, you know, are very big into school, and, you know, kind of whatever. They're over at the bar because there's a television and the Ultimate Fighter series finale's on, and they're all glued to the television. All the moms are watching this. It was a really good fight. It was a very historically good fight. People will still talk to that fight, but they're all glued to the television watching the UFC, and I'm like, whoa, right? This is like, these are, right? So this is, because this is not martial artists watching. I mean, in this case, it was martial arts parents watching, but still, it was just people watching, right? It was your average Joe watching, okay? So MMA is, now, if you look at the percentages of people who do martial arts nowadays, it hasn't really changed, right? The MMA has not necessarily made more people want to do martial arts. If you wanted to do martial arts, you were going to probably find martial arts to do. What it really has done, it's not a market share, it's not a market size issue, it's a market share issue, okay? MMA, if I'm interested in this type of activity, then I might be more interested in, well, I want to do more specifically MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or something that, you know, I watch on TV, right? So, again, it has made Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu very, very popular, right? And, you know, that's, and again, it kind of depends, right? So, you know, most kids, when parents call and I'm like, well, what's your kid interested in? Well, they want to do martial arts. I'm like, well, do they like UFC or do they want to be a Ninja Turtle? Right? Because if it's, you know, they think of martial arts about like what they see on TV, Power Ranger actions, kicking, punching. Well, that's Taekwondo, right? If they're like, oh, they love the UFC and everything else, well, then they want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So, so again, it's more of a shift in what they do, not necessarily making more people do it. Maybe a few, but again, it didn't really move the needle on total participation. It just changed what people were doing. Okay. Now, there's a couple of other fringe activities that also kind of tied to martial arts. Okay. Also in the early 2000s, like 2010, something like that. One of them was more of an exercise craze, and that being, Anybody remember? Actually, I don't know if you guys know it by name. Anybody heard of Taibo? It's your cardio kickboxing class, right? Everybody, 1, 2, 3, and they're doing it. Now, the fitness industry in general has always been quick to pick up on fads, right? There was, and they are boom and bust. Everybody does it, and then you get the diehards who still really like to do that particular thing, but a lot of everybody else moves on to the next cool thing, right? You have arguably running was a fad when it started with the Cooper Institute and everything else, and obviously lots of people still run, but it was a big thing. There was the step aerobics, right, in the 80s, or jazzercise. There's probably still a church somewhere that does jazzercise, but like, you know, the step aerobics, jazzercise stuff, and the leg warmers and stepping up on the steps and stuff like that. It's still around, but it's not very popular anymore, right? There was the trampoline craze in like the 70s. You might know that. Right? Everybody had little mini trampolines and bounced on their trampolines for the workout class until people fell off and broke their arms and like everything else. Like, maybe it's not a good idea anymore or whatever else. But there was trampoline pads or whatever else, right? So as I said, the fitness industry is always quick to jump onto, or something gets popular. Zumba has come and started to go again. Just your basic hit 'em, high intensity training classes, CrossFit. Again, if you're a CrossFit diehard, then so it seems like it's maybe more here to stay a little bit more. But again, there's always, like, you know, there was the drumstick one, there were the pound classes or whatever. We had a lady do it for like you can actually see the dents where people pound too hard on their drumsticks. It lasted like a month or 2 here, but I don't know if it really ever caught on, but there for a while it was a fad. Spin cycles, bicycling, not the spin cycle on your washing machine. The spin classes that were, you know, stationary bikes, right? And there's still people who go to spin class, right? Or the Peloton classes or whatever, but you know, that was a big boom. One of those was Taibo, which was a cardio kickboxing class, okay? And everybody and their brother wanted to offer these classes. The problem was, there were a lot of aerobics instructors then deciding they're going to teach martial arts, right? And they're going there, 1, 2, 3, and they're just flinging their arms out there or whatever else. Now, keep in mind, then there's a lot of martial arts instructors that also jumped on the craze and go, well, we can offer them, and we know how to jab and kick and punch and do those things better, but like, we don't understand beats per minute in your target heart rate zone and other the stuff that group exercise specialists are better at, right? A lot of martial artists don't understand that aspect. Okay? Used to be a personal trainer for a while too, and I appreciate that, right? So like, for example, at IU, when this started, they had me come in because there's a personal trainer there, but they also knew I taught all the martial arts classes, so they had me come in. I was the consultant for they call it Kickbo, because, you know, right, Taibo's trademarked or whatever, so they call it Kickbo there or whatever. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna train our staff, all our group instructors. So when they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it right. So they're gonna have good straight punches. They're not gonna just fling jabs out this way. They're gonna have good clean punches. The combinations are gonna be realistic and make sense, right? You're not gonna be like jab, cross, back kick, or whatever, and like makes no sense or whatever from a combative standpoint or whatever, right? So we're gonna make it a little more realistic. So we spent I spent a ton of time training everybody. We spent a lot of time, but it's basically college. People come and go, like all those people, like 6 months later, there's brand new people are just flinging their arms again. I'm like, they walk into their, like I cut through a gym that they would have classes in, like the 8 a.m. like workout of that session. And I'd have to go through that gym to get to my office there. And there's someone going, all right, jab, cross, jab, cross. I'm like, you're in a horse dance. You don't have a lead. Neither one of those are a jab or a cross. I'm like, I'm almost everything I can do not to grab the mic from him. Like, stop, right? It doesn't even make sense, right? But so this was a conundrum in the 2000s. So this kickboxing craze was huge. In fact, and it was one of those debates in the martial arts. Do we like, if I offered classes, some schools basically made more money from the fitness craze than they did the martial arts classes. Because every one of your moms would want to join that kickboxing class back in the day, that fitness kickboxing class back in the day, right? And everything else. And again, there's still some of that out there, but it is, a lot of times it's now just incorporated into other classes. You do some other group exercise and there's some jabs, punches, and kicks in it. You still see it, but it's not a dedicated class, right? But you would have, but like then it's, all right, some people are like, you're selling out, you're just, all you're doing is those classes, you're not even teaching real martial arts anymore. Other people are like, well, no, I'm keeping the lights on doing a fitness activity so that then I don't have to compromise the integrity of my martial arts classes, right? And, so there's a big debate in the martial arts and stuff like that about these cardio kickboxing classes. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What I tried to do at IU was then I took a class, I made a class called Fight and Fit, which basically, all right, if you like the cardio kickboxing classes, and besides, if you know from demo team, I can't keep a beat to save my life, so they couldn't give, like I couldn't do, right? So I'd be in the class, but they couldn't give me a mic because I can't count and do it, right? So I couldn't do those classes even if I wanted to, right? So they couldn't give me a mic. So we're like, okay, if you like this class, why don't you come to my class where it's more of a martial arts conditioning class, but we're doing it more for real, right? And we're training more for fighting functionality and conditioning. It's still a good workout, but it's not just you standing there and doing this, right? So again, there's the fitness fad in the 2000s changed martial arts a little bit. There's also, in particular, because of the boomer generation, okay, as they're becoming older, you see, and this has been a trend for a while, okay, but it's still kind of the case, the yoga, the tai chi, the kind of wellness aspect, right, as the baby boomer generation is getting older and retiring, and they're not doing blood and guts. They're not doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're not doing cardio kickboxing, right? But they want to not fall and break a hip, right? Or they still want to be able to touch their toes or whatever. So the wellness aspect is another offshoot angle. And obviously we offer our Tai Chi classes here. We still try to keep a little martial aspect to it, right? So the people, but I mean, there's plenty of people that are senior citizens in the class. None of them are interested in becoming cage fighters, right? But we still teach the martial arts aspect of it, but it's not a heavy emphasis on it, because again, they're there to, again, learn how to have better balance, better muscle tone, and stuff like that, at an age and intensity appropriate level, right? So you have that trend in the martial arts. There was one other kind of, there for a while, again, it was kind of a boon, but it was more of a specific boon as far as the types of martial arts programming. And this one is more tied to a national event. Happened in 2001 in September. Otherwise, what number month is September?
9/11.
9/11. Okay? The Twin Towers.
You said 2001.
Yeah.
In 2011?
No, 9/11, 2001. 2001, wasn't it? Pretty sure. I'll check on that. But it was 9/11. Okay? So it was the anniversary of the attacks on the Twin Towers. Okay? Now, again, this was a short-term boom, a short-term change or shift in martial arts training, but everything, again, you had your fringe UFC, I want to learn how to, fight types, combat type stuff or whatever. But again, this is still mostly a kid's activity. Martial arts is for fun and, maybe a little sport, but dough aspects or stuff like that. But 9/11 really rocked people's idea of security to the core, right? And so there is a huge uptick in basically self-defense training there for a while. I need to know what I need to, and I've written in the newsletter even somewhat recently. Generally speaking, fear does not sell, right? Even if it's for a good cause. If you sit there and you take a picture of you've got the guy, the mugger ready to attack the woman or whatever else and stuff like that. That doesn't look like a good time, right? Even though you're trying to avoid that, but you associate the training with that bad experience, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to go through that, even though it's supposed to help you prevent that from happening, right? But that, fear doesn't sell very well in martial arts. And it's it's kind of strange. You go to a lot of martial arts schools and you see the logo on the front window or whatever. There's some guy, a Taekwondo school or whatever, someone's getting kicked up the flying sidekick and the other guy's getting kicked in the head, right? And he's going like this and the other guy's kicking him. Or the one guy's doing a cut kick and laying back and the other guy's literally getting, his feet are off the ground. He's kind of getting folded in half in the air, you know what I'm talking about? Or whatever else, right? Now the average Joe walking by and sees that and they look at it and who do you think they identify with in the picture? Do they look at the guy that's 6 feet in the air kicking and going, oh, I'm that guy? No, they look at the guy that's getting his face kicked by that guy and go, oh, that would be me. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get kicked in the face, right? So again, the conventional wisdom is you can't show people getting beat up or whatever because the average Joe is going to be like, I don't want to get beat up because I don't know how to do the other stuff. Right? So you got to get, you're down on level with the person and you're fixing and they're smiling and you're smiling. You're a nice, friendly instructor, and everything else. And you're fixing their hand and this. Okay. Oh, well, that looks fun. He looks nice. I'll join class. Right? Okay. So that's the way it goes. Right? And then you meet me and everything changes. Right? Okay. So, so 9/11 really changed people's perspective for a while. So after that happened, there was the flights were grounded, right, for a long time. Airport traffic, people were stranded in foreign cities and in airports and stuff like that because they didn't know how many other possible terrorist cells were out there. They shut everything down for a couple of days before flights resumed. Okay. And so I had the grandmother of one of our students here was a flight attendant, and she happened to be off, or she wasn't flying that day. She was here or whatever, and she wasn't scheduled for another week or whatever. And they're like, oh, we need to do so the mom of the student that calls me is like, my mom needs some training. And I'm like, what? Yeah, she flies out on Thursday. We need to train her before she flies out. I'm like, what? She's a 60-year-old grandma, right, who's almost retiring flight attendant or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay. One, the odds of you being on the next flight of terrorists is pretty slim, right? And I'm like, well, what can we do? Like, all right, well, let's do some fast, let's do some boundary sand, let's do some more type stuff or whatever else and stuff. And so I started but I set up and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do these things, and we started on the private. I set it up and we start working because she wanted these private, and I start kind of going down a different road that I thought would be more beneficial to her, and she stops me right there and she's like, and again, we were dealing with how to deal with, just dealing with people as far as, how should we say, assertive boundary setting and stuff like that. And she's like, look, I've been dealing with a-holes on flights my whole life. Like, I can deal with that. I want to know if someone comes with me with a box cutter like this, or a knife, what am I going to do? I'm like, okay. So, so in an hour of training, I'm supposed to teach this 60-year-old woman in an hour, how to deal with crazed, committed attackers with a blade or whatever else. I'm like, okay. But probably in the grand scheme of things, not really going to help a whole lot, but she was not going to get on another plane until she felt like she knew what she was more prepared, what she was going to do. Okay? So, I gave her something. I'm like, here's your best bet, right? Good luck with the other 3 guys that are also on the plane, but that's another story, right? Or whatever. Like, here's your best bet. Okay? So like I said, it really changed. And this turns into another niche or offshoot is what we call reality-based training. We lump our fast classes in that, okay? And again, I was doing the fast before this, but there are certain people that it had been around before, but it reasserted the need for, there are certain people that want some basic martial art or self-defense training, but they don't want to wear the angry white pajamas. They don't want to spend, 3 years getting a black belt to say, oh, well, now I can defend myself now, or whatever. They want the crash course. They'll commit a weekend or 2, but they're not committed to long-term study, right? But they want the crash course version, right? And so, again, that's our fast classes, and sometimes you can get a lot out of that. Because self-defense and martial arts are not always the same, as we've talked about and here and then in our fast classes. But so that's a fraction, right? And so you see these different niches that have spread out in the martial arts, but the overall thing that I want you to take home is the fact that is usually tied to some type of event, right? It made people want to do that, whether it was an event in history, whether it was just a fashion or trend in fitness, or again, some type of media event, often